Hey guys, what's going on? Genesis J here today to give you a comprehensive Elder Scrolls Online review. Now, I'm only level 39, yes, but I have put in about 108 hours of gameplay into this game, and I've got a very good idea of what the game has, what the game doesn't, and definitely where the game can improve. So stay tuned, and I'm going to give you a very good idea of whether or not, one, you should buy the game, two, you should continue to subscribe to the game, or three, does this live up to the Elder Scrolls license? So stay tuned, folks, and we're going to get into this for you guys. Alright, so the first thing that I want to point out is to the people who, first of all, don't own the game, or have been kind of wavering back and forth whether or not you should pick it up. Well, first and foremost, definitely a game that is very expensive. You're looking at a $60 retail game with, I would almost say, a very kind of sneaky $20 upgrade to a collector's edition, which makes things a lot more affordable, especially a horse. The one thing that really kind of gets on my nerves about this game is it makes a lot of the essential things extremely expensive in in-game currency. Bag space, so your adventuring time out on the world sometimes will be a little bit shorter than it should be. You know, I want to go out and I want to adventure and I want to see the world, you know, for what it is. And you have to stop and go back to towns a lot because bag space is obscenely expensive. The first horse that you can buy without the collector's edition is going to cost you about 17,000 gold. What you're looking at is probably 20 to 25 levels of walking around on your feet. That's not a bad thing. The game is beautiful to look at, but definitely the first thing that you might notice when you hop into the game is that it can be a bit cheeky with how it wants you to continue to spend money. The game, as an Elder Scrolls game, though, if you haven't played the game and you're an Elder Scrolls fan, this game will probably let you down. As the Elder Scrolls license goes, it has everything you'd expect. It has all the characters, it has all the classes, it has everything you'd think, you know, but it doesn't really deliver the Elder Scrolls experience. It is actually, you know, a very confined, not so open game. What you have with a lot of other games in the Elder Scrolls series is just a complete openness. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want. And basically, due to MMORPG design, you can't do that here. You can equip any weapon, equip any armor, doesn't matter what class you are, but you are very limited in what you can do. You can't just go and you know, I know one of my friends used to like to, you know, kill an NPC in his house and use his house to, you know, store his dragon bones in Skyrim. Like, you can't do that kind of cool stuff here. So that's something that you're gonna miss. The other thing you're gonna miss, if you're an Elder Scrolls fan specifically, is that the game is, as you're seeing right now, being played in third person. The game is, and as it should, it falls into the MMORPG design. You really can't play this game effectively first person. You can play it first person. Like, I can go in first person right now and I can walk around. But the thing that hinders this game is MMORPG design. There's a lot of little, you know, in this game it's red spots on the ground. You can't stand in the red spots or you're going to get hurt, right? When you're in first person, it's very hard to see what happens, where these little red spots are. Like, if I'm fighting right here and this guy does an AoE attack, it's very difficult. Look, he just did an AoE attack and I missed it. It's very difficult to see what you need to see when you're in first person mode. So that's a big disappointment. MMORPG Elder Scrolls game definitely designed for third person. The game, though, if you go into it with a certain set of expectations, you can be very satisfied. I hated the game for about a week when I was playing it because I went into it expecting a Elder Scrolls MMO. But if you look at this as an MMORPG with Elder Scrolls elements, the game is pretty awesome, right? If you named this game anything other than the Elder Scrolls Online, the game is freaking awesome because it brings a lot of the elements of Elder Scrolls, but it doesn't give you Elder Scrolls. So that's something to keep in mind if you haven't played the game yet. Alright guys, so into the comprehensive review area of this video. So, the Elder Scrolls Online, the first thing that I fell in love with was complete, fully voice acted quests. Now, the bad thing about the quest is sometimes that you will find that the overarching story is good, but you might find yourself bored by the tasks and by the unimaginative facial animations. Nothing goes on. They stand there like a board, which is sometimes typical of Elder Scrolls games, which isn't a good thing to strive for, ZeniMax Online. But they are very much, robotic characters, and that's, something that's disappointing. It really is. When you look at other parts of the game that you have here, combat is something that is up for debate. Combat in a Elder Scrolls game, it really doesn't hold the weight. Melee combat, it doesn't feel right because of how skill-based it is. Now, if we take it again and look at it in our second set of expectations as an MMORPG, the combat is fantastic. With the skills that you have, you're limited to 5 at a time on your bar, and that basically means you have to make some very critical decisions. You have 2 sets of weapons available, which you can change to at any time. But the thing that you need to think about is, what is your role in the game? You can play pretty much any role you want to in any class. If I want to play a tank mage, I can do that because any class can wear any armor, can wear use any weapon, can do anything, right? The taunts in the game, if I want to be a tank mage, I can use a one-handed sword and shield and actually have a taunt. So you can do anything. It makes the game very open. It makes the game very much enjoyable because 2 people who play the game, the exact same class, could do it completely differently. And that's something that adds amazing amounts of replayability, especially with alternate characters. So with how open the game could be, you can get a lot of branching skills and things like that, especially with, again, looking at like armor, for example. If I open this armor tab, light armor has its own set of passive abilities that can affect my character, as does medium, as does heavy armor. And as you level up these armor skills, by reading books, by doing, wearing one piece, if I just wear some leather gloves, it'll level up my medium armor here. So you can give yourself a lot of things here, and skill points are in abundance. So you'll find yourself, as I am here, I'm carrying 1 extra one just because I can. And I'm not missing out on anything. I have a lot of the passive skills that I want. So you can take this game in many different directions, there are the guilds, being fighters, mages, and the undaunted in the game. They all level up in different ways. Again, Alliance has their own skills. This is for PvP combat, your own skills there. So what you'll find is every level up that you get a skill point, but there are sky shards, these little collectible items in the game, which leads into my next point later. But the more sky shards you collect, every 3 sky shards give you another point. Shiny. And you quite enjoy it. So you can really get a lot of skill points, and even some quests, some story quests will give you skill points. So you're never going to find yourself really kind of strapped for points. I mean, I have a significant amount of points in my crafting skills here, blacksmithing being my main skill, with woodworking my off skill. I have a lot of points tied up here, and I don't feel like I'm missing out on my combat. So don't worry about the kind of especially early game, for people who play this, don't worry about worry where you're putting your skills, because it's gonna work out in the end. And going on to my point there about the sky shards, there is so much to do in every single zone. This is the very first zone in the game that I played. I played on the Ebonheart Pact. Now, as you see, there's lots of stuff all over the map here. These are areas I've discovered, quest areas. There are solo dungeons, they call them, which are done almost like a public dungeon, basically. You walk in, and if anybody else is there, you can either work together or not, or you go in essentially alone and do what you want to do in there. There are quests and an end boss that you can do. There's sky shards everywhere. There's so many things to explore, and the world is beautiful. Right now, with random weather. It just started to rain. There are some nights, the world has its own lunar cycle, and there are some nights where you'll try to find out what the lunar cycle is, and you just can't see the moon because there's happens to be rain in your zone. It really adds to a lot of the beauty in the game. The game here is running on high settings, not ultra high, but what you're looking at it is just a beautifully designed game in a realistic setting. It's not a cartoony kind of game. If you like that kind of style, you're not going to like this, but it's a fantastic way to show off the Elder Scrolls here. And of course, with exploration is going to come partying up, especially with your friends. If you get into this game with 3 or 4 friends, you're going to want to do the whole game together. And here's where some of the problems start. With grouping, it is very, very not... it's not intuitive. What you have is group systems that fail. The game is heavily, heavily instanced. So what you're going to find is if you, your friend, and a third person are doing a quest and there's a choice, A or B. If 2 of you choose A, the friend that chose B turns invisible. And you can't theoretically group with him in that area. You'd have to move to a different area to see him. Because he's made a choice, he's instanced himself. And that's something that really sucks about the game, is if you really want to become a self-sufficient player, you can. But if you want to group with your friends, the game is really counterintuitive that way. And not only that, when you're questing, bugs are plentiful. Now, these are not, in my opinion, bugs that really hinder my personal experience, but some people are going to be frustrated. The quests constantly break. There are quest blockers everywhere. You can't complete some of the things that you want to do. And not only that, when you're going into the game and you want to play around, you can't finish things. You want to get your achievement for the zone? Too bad. That quest is bugged. You can't finish that one quest that'll get you that achievement. So very plentiful bugs. That's not all. There are certain zoning problems. For example, these harvesting nodes sometimes will be all lit up and shiny, but when you go to cut them down, sometimes they're already cut. They just haven't disappeared yet. So lots of little small things. They are fixing these, but at this point, it's been a month. This is the time when you need to make your decision. Am I going to pay another $15 for this game? And the answer to that's, it's a buggy game at this point. One thing that the developers kind of fell flat on is the overall design. Now, I know what they did. What you're seeing on your screen is a semi-modded experience. The mini-map is not actually in the game. You have to open your map every time. Your compass is very minimalist. It shows you very close icons. Your experience bar doesn't even show you how much experience you need to have. This is a modification that I've done to the game. Every game has some mods available. I don't think anybody plays, some people do, not to be biased, but people mod any MMO that they play, but this game actually needs it to be an MMO. For example, to open my bag, this is a mod. This really organizes it for you. Without a mod, it looks like this. And to find what you want to find in your inventory can be a pain in the butt. And even when you have a lot of tabs here, I have enough items. I have 95 bag space. I can go into my materials and have a heck of a time finding what I want to find. So the game really falls flat with their overall interface design, and it actually does require some additional modifications to the game. So keep that in mind. The vanilla experience might not be what you want. You might need to get some mods before you really start to enjoy your overall experience with the UI. Alright, so one of the zones that a lot of people want to really explore is PvP. And this is the Cyrodiil map. Cyrodiil being the zone that was portrayed in the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, this is the PvP zone here in the Elder Scrolls Online. And now each faction is done sort of like Guild Wars. So each faction has a color, the Ebonheart Pact being red, the Daggerfall Covenant being blue, and the Aldmeri Dominion being yellow. And as you capture these keeps, you open up a lot of fast travel, things like that. So right now, the Ebonheart Pact is actually doing really well. When you look at the overall map, there's a heck of a lot of things to do here. In this zone, there is both PvP, obviously, and PvE content to take advantage of. There's solo dungeons, just like there are in the main map, loads of sky shards, and actual quests in the zone to do if you want to. And one of the other really awesome strengths of the game is crafting. So this is my main profession, being blacksmithing. So there's lots of different ores. For each zone I've been in, there's been a different metal that I can produce. Now what's really awesome about the game, first and foremost, is each individual weapon has traits that you can research requiring you to have an item in your inventory. If I find a battle axe that has the powered trait, I can research that and then recreate a new battle axe with that trait on it. And each one has different things. Some are more useful than others, and there are some traits I've come across that are, as thus far, untrainable in this zone here. Now, crafting, if you find a sword that you really like, you could take that sword and improve it. I like the white stone sword, so I can use these. It shows you the chart of the items that you need. You can improve that sword to legendary if you want to. So it really gives you a lot of freedom there, as well as deconstructing. If I want to get more experience, if I just want to break this thing down, I've gained some experience for doing that, and I've got some resources as well. This is true for every piece of armor in the game. There is no jewel crafting, so any necklaces or rings, you have to basically vendor. But that's a huge draw of this game, is crafting. You could do anything. If I want to create an item here, I can create anything I want. There are different styles. You can get these books in the game which teach you different crafting styles of all the different races, and they all look different. So you'll find a certain style that really speaks to you and you want to craft all over. And then there's traits as well going to the bottom. Each trait requires a gem. To put a gem in your weapon doesn't change the amount of experience you can get, as far as I've tried, but what you get here is so much more choice, so much more ability to control what you're crafting. You're not just making axes, you're making an Argonian axe that has, reduces the cooldown of weapon enchantments by 30%. Like, you do so much more here with crafting than you can in any other MMO that I've ever played. And I've played a lot of them. This is very much a strength for me. This keeps me going in a lot of games. If you're the kind of person that likes to have crafting and likes to control your crafting, this will do that for you easily. So one thing to say about crafting is that if you want to be self-sufficient and you want to craft these items and you want to sell them, or you mine a whole bunch of ore and you want to sell it, there is no auction house. It blows my mind, even to this day, that there's no auction house. Now, they have plans for the future. There's a lot of plans for the future, but as it stands right now, you have guild stores. So basically, for the guilds that you're in, you can trade your items. People can buy them, do whatever that you want to do with that. Now, the problem with that is that, first and foremost, my items barely ever sell, and you could be in 5 guilds at once. It feels like a cop-out. It feels like something that they should have implemented in the game, but they did not. I think that was a bit of a misstep, and an auction house, a traditional auction house, would make a huge difference there. Alright guys, so this has been a very long video. Thank you for sticking it out with me. The final thoughts here, guys, if you are into MMORPGs, I would give this game a try. Okay, there's lots of bugs, there's no auction house, things are obscenely expensive, things that you would expect in most games. Bag space, for example, extremely expensive. But if you're into MMOs, I would say this game is worth it. The PvP is fantastic. It's one of the best parts of the game. The crafting is incredibly in-depth, and you can do so much with it. You have a very cool, fully voice-acted, all your story, all your quests, fully voice-acted. Amazing. Even though the same voices tend to appear very much often in the story. But that is another small thing. The glitches in the game are not enough that really ruin the experience. There's a lot that I would say bug me, like, for example, not being able to get a quest for completing all the quests in a zone because my quest is bugged or my quest didn't show up or something like that. That's something that really bugs the heck out of me. But if you're an Elder Scrolls fan and you're not into MMOs, this is a very hard game to recommend. It doesn't give you enough of the Elder Scrolls to really make you want to play it. It doesn't have a real identity. They take some of the Elder Scrolls, they took some of MMO design, they smashed it together, but they got kind of a 50-50 of each. It doesn't feel like Elder Scrolls, but it doesn't feel like your traditional online experience where you can quest with your friends and do all of that. The game does have a cool, I guess you call it a party finder in this game. It's not a dungeon finder, but you can find a party for a specific type of questing. But again, that party sometimes is hit or miss with who shows up and who is instanced. So, guys, overall, this game has a lot of mixed reviews. I don't really like giving numbers out. I would say if you're interested in MMOs, give it a shot. But if you're an Elder Scrolls guy, you love Skyrim, you put 200 hours in Skyrim, I don't think you're going to be into this game. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. Please click the little logo in the corner, subscribe to the channel. This is a little bit of a variety channel, but there's going to be a heck of a lot of gameplay. Look out for Dark Souls 2. Look out for some really awesome vlogs, and I will catch you guys a little bit later. Take care, everybody.